When I came back to New York, I also came out in life, and I started to work.
Age.
I was 27 at that
Right.
point, though I had worked straight through the Palm.
Right.
And that was building a relationship with my dad that we didn't have from the early
Yeah.
years. And then when I came out, I said to him, because it was such a heterosexual Palm
Yeah,
steakhouse,
very kind of male.
macho. And I said, "Is this going to be an issue for you?" And he said, "No, you are a good
course.
man, and that's
Good.
and that the restaurant, which I so resented as a boy, became the bridge that
Yeah.
gave me my relationship with my dad."
Like many of life's best ideas, the idea of having Bruce Bozzi as a guest on Ruthie's Table 4 began in a kitchen. A few months ago, Bruce, his husband Brian, and I were together in their home in L.A. Knowing Bruce loves to cook, we had decided to make a tomato and basil pasta together for a good group of friends. Picking the basil, peeling the garlic, draining the tomatoes, Bruce and I talked about growing up in New York, living in L.A., and discovering how much we share in our lives and the world of food. Bruce grew up in an Italian-American home, and for many generations, his family had the Palm Restaurant, an American legend. Today, Bruce and I are together again to continue our conversation. And when it's over, we'll end up where we began, another kitchen, this time at the River Cafe. Two good friends, cooking, talking, and basking in the love and happiness of being together.
Oh, thank you.
So do you remember that night?
Oh my God!
What did we love
that
about
night
that
was
night?
that night goes down as one of the top 3 nights we've ever had in that house.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
no, Ruthie,
it was,
seriously,
right?
the connection. Besides the food, that was.
It was just a tomato pasta.
I know, but the simple,
Actually, I agree. It's the simpler.
the
go on.
simpler, the better.
Yeah.
And the connection over as we were cooking and our guests, it really was a phenomenal.
Yeah.
When you said you were gonna come to the house and we were gonna cook,
Yeah.
I was nervous. I was like, okay, like Ruthie's coming to cook. Like what do we need to do?
Yeah.
And you made it so incredibly easy
Wow.
and fun, and
Yeah.
the vibe of the
Yeah.
house is great,
And Bono wandered in
Bono
on the way to
wandered
the
in. I
airport.
mean,
My brother came. And
your brother
Yeah,
came.
it was just it was Austin came.
Austin came. We
Yeah.
had the best. And the other thing that, Ruthie, you do, which is something I really believe in the business that we are in, you brought everyone together.
Well, it's what you do, what we do, and what we love. But it was really a special,
It was super special.
evening. And I think tomato pasta. You actually chose a recipe which has tomatoes and a sauce and the pasta. Do you know the story of this pasta?
No.
Rose,
Right.
my late partner in the River Cafe, had these two great friends called Adam and Chloe. And when we were doing the very first cookbook, we decided to put their recipes in for pasta with sausage and tomato. When they disagreed, but one of them did it very slow.
Oh, so
one of
that's
them
why
did
there was
So
two,
we had,
right.
so we said, okay, you're good friends. We'll put both your recipes in side by side. So one is tomato pasta a la Chloe, and the
Right.
other one was Adam.
Adam.
And so you choose the Adam one. I think
did.
you chose the Adam. That's right. You just
All
really-
right, so tonight we are going to have penne with Adam's slow-cooked sausage sauce. Serve 6. It's 8 fresh Italian spiced pork sausages crumbled. I mean, come on, that's so delicious.
Taste-
2 small red onions, peeled and chopped. 2 garlic cloves, peeled and chopped. 2 small dried chilies, crumbled. 250 milliliters of Chianti.
Yeah, milliliters. This was written for the British edition.
Right.
We could have given him the American one. Okay.
so
But we
funny,
have an
yeah.
international audience.
Right,
So
okay,
anybody who's
right.
listening, we can do the
Right.
math for you.
Do the math.
Okay.
So 1 kilogram jar of peeled plum tomatoes, 120 grams of Parmesan freshly grated, 150 milliliters double cream, 250 grams of penne rigate.
Rigate.
Mamma mia. Fry the sausage meat, stirring and breaking up the pieces. After the juices from the meat have evaporated, add the onions, garlic, and chilies. Cook gently for about 30 minutes. I mean, can you imagine the smell of that? Add the wine, cook until the wine evaporates. Add the tomatoes, lower the heat, and simmer gently or until you have a thick sauce. season, stir in the Parmesan and cream. Cook the penne until al dente. Add the penne to the sauce, toss well, and serve. With love.
Simple as that. With
Yes,
love.
with love. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
It's very Italian.
Yeah.
And I think that it's interesting that you chose such an Italian recipe.
Well, I think, growing up, when
Yes.
my mother would cook,
Yes.
when she had her lasagna recipe, and part of that was all sausage and stirring and, sauteing the onions and the garlic and then adding that. And then when you were cooking the sausages, using the sort of juice from that to add in. So the whole ritual of kind of combining the ingredients are
Brings
just
it
so
together.
magical to me.
Let's start at the beginning because
Okay.
your parents were born in America,
parents
or
were
did
born-
they? And your grandparents?
Yeah, no. My great-grandfather, Pio Bozzi,
Yes.
and his partner, they were born in Italy. My
What, do you
family
know where?
comes from Parma,
Parma.
and his partner, John Ganzi. So it's the Ganzis and the Bozzis,
Yeah,
these two
yeah.
families that came
Got it.
together. And they really just opened a small one-room restaurant at 837 2nd
Amazing.
Avenue in New York, between 44th and 45th. They went to apply for a business license to call it Parma from the place they were from. But the people in the
That's
at the business bureau
Yeah.
couldn't understand their accent, so they stamped it Palm. And they were so frightened to say anything different for
Yeah.
fear of
Yeah.
not getting it. The Palm
became
was
the Palm.
the Palm, that became
I was
the
going to
name.
ask you my sort of thoughts about talking today. I was going to ask, why was this restaurant called the Palm?
Right.
Because when you think of palm trees in the United States, you think of
Right.
Florida or California.
Not
and
New
this
York.
was on Second
On
Avenue.
2nd Avenue.
But it's such a great name for a restaurant. I mean,
Yeah.
Parma would have been great. So tell me more about the beginning.
So the beginnings, I think, are, and setting up any sort of foundation, and we
Yeah.
were talking about anything that's set in truth and authenticity. The small restaurant that had wood sawdust on the floor, so it was not fancy. It was really, it was like a beat up joint kind of restaurant that very much in the early 30s, the big crash of 1929.
Sure.
The neighborhood had a lot of syndicates, had a lot of newspaper people, but it was really local people living there. Cartoonists used to come in, and they couldn't pay for their meals because the stock market had crashed. So my great-grandfather said, okay, we'll start drawing on the walls. And
On
that's
the
how
walls.
the rivets of the murals
Yeah.
and that's how they pay for their meals.
Yeah.
And that became a palm rivet. And then the other thing was people started asking for steak. And there was
Yeah.
a butcher literally across the street, and the waiter would just
Go
go get the steak
That's
when
amazing.
they wanted a steak. So
Yeah.
it became then known as a steakhouse, an Italian steakhouse, and then steak. And as it grew, but really for all those years, from the first and second generation, it was at that one location on 2nd Avenue. And very much like the River Cafe, it expanded next door, took the space next
Yeah.
door, and then it took the space upstairs as business dictated, And then in the early 70s, my father and his partner Wally said their fathers had been sick. They sort of took over, and they, at the time, George Bush Sr., who was an ambassador, was moving to
China.
D.C. and said, there's not a lot of places to eat in D.C.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever thought of opening the Palm there? Because the Palm was 3 or 4 blocks from the United Nations in Manhattan.
Right.
And they said no, but yes. And that began
The
kind of the first white tablecloth restaurant expansion in
Wow.
America. So we went to D.C., and it was so jam-packed. And, we're both friends with Diane von Furstenberg, who she always talked
Yeah.
about the 70s. And it
Yeah.
was like, 70s in New York was pretty spectacular. It was just like, and it was like a line, you couldn't get in, and there was a little Italian joint across the street. And my dad used to say he'd look out the window, and these guys would just be like staring at the Palm, which was so busy. And then they decided to take over that small space, and then from there went to Los Angeles, which
Yeah.
I think these DC, Los Angeles,
New York.
that trifecta
Yeah.
became politics
Yeah.
and Hollywood and
Yeah.
New York. It really kind of grew this small
Yeah.
immigrant Italian restaurant that was already
Was it still seen as an Italian restaurant? Because you see, I never.
It was more of it than as a steakhouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and lobster. I remember the lobsters.
The
that were
lobsters.
called.
So in the 60s, they introduced the lobsters.
Yeah, because I was married to an Italian who loved Italian food. And loved food. Whatever city we went to, whether it was Beijing or Marrakesh, or Paris or Rome, you want to eat the food of the country.
Yes.
So when we would go to New York and we'd be taken out to, or offered to, can we take you to this wonderful Italian restaurant, wonderful French restaurant?
Right.
Let's go to Chinatown and have this. Actually, what Bishop would always say was, let's go to an American restaurant. And for us, that was the palm, and
It's
it became
amazing
this
to
kind
me.
of, and we just loved that generosity. And I think I never ate anything there, probably except for lobster or steak.
Yeah. And everything was
But
big. The
it
portions
was
were
big,
big.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Everything was big. It became
Yeah.
known to have these lobsters, which no one was serving at this, were 3, 4, 5, 6 pound lobsters, which
Yeah.
were huge, and steaks were 18
Yeah, I
ounces,
know.
and like everything could feed
Yeah.
everyone at the table, and that became sort of a thing.
But how did that connect to your house, back to the domestic life? You were
Sure.
born into this family. Your father was at the restaurant.
My
Obviously,
father
he was
was at the restaurant all day.
Yeah.
I never really saw my dad growing
Really?
up. I mean, so what would happen is in the morning he'd be asleep
Mm-hmm.
when we would go to school, and then he'd be at the restaurant for lunch. We'd come home from school.
And who was we? You have brothers
My
and
sister.
sisters?
I have an older
the
sister.
Two of you.
Right, the two
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
And Andrea, and she.
And this was in New York City, so
New
you
York
lived
City.
right in Manhattan.
Yeah, we lived in Queens, Jackson Heights, Queens, until 1975, and then moved into Manhattan.
Yeah.
And because it was closer to,
Yeah.
even though it's just across the bridge.
Yeah.
And then at night we were with our mom, and then so I really.
Did she have any involvement?
Not really. It was a
Yeah.
very pretty much man. It was
Yeah.
historically.
Yeah.
The boys got the restaurant, and it was not the easiest of times in regard to. And my parents met in high school; they're still together today. But there was a big rough patch
Sure,
of
sure. Yeah.
a restaurant guy, is
Yeah.
not a restaurant
It's-
person.
Yeah,
not
of course
easy.
it is. It is.
It takes a
bec-
lot.
The restaurant becomes your home as well
Everything,
when you're
right.
working there.
My mother
so-
always says, the restaurant would close at 12, but you'd be home at 3:30 in the
Yeah,
morning.
well, that's
So
true.
she was
It's
like,
hard to leave.
yeah.
But she
playing
cooked. She
cards.
cooked for you. Did you?
She did.
Did you?
She would
and it's
cook
also-
for us. I mean,
Yeah.
we
So
come
you'd
home.
go to school.
We go to school.
Come home.
and I didn't have the biggest palate, so a chicken Milanese or a roast. A roast chicken was one of my favorite things that she could cook. Slow roast chicken. Salad, and God forbid we didn't eat it because we ate junk. After school. Sometimes
Right.
you'd go and
Yeah.
you'd hit
She sounds
the
cool. I'd
grocery
like to
store.
meet your mother. Yeah.
She's a great woman.
Yeah.
She's a tough New York Italian, fiercely loyal to friends and family woman. And
She sounds
yeah.
great. But did you connect? Did you have so your
I
grandmother?
did. I had two grandmothers that really both grandfathers I met very briefly in life.
Right.
Our
'Cause one
journeys
died at
passed
what-
over
yeah,
quickly.
Yeah.
One passed in 74, one passed in 71, so I was a
Right.
little boy. My grandmother's, I was very close to my mother's mother, specifically Sadie, and she died in 1983 on March 13th.
Yeah.
And we were very close. And and my father's mother, who was now part of the Palm experience,
Right.
Louise, we were very close as well. And, they were very different. My father's mother was loving. She had, but she was out there. Like she kind of traveled and lived life. She was sort of like a Sophia Loren type, red hair, curvaceous, smoking cigarettes. And my grandmother was more of a traditional. If you think of Martin Scorsese's mom,
Yeah.
twins. You
Really?
would think they were
Oh,
twins.
really?
Like I recently saw that documentary, and I sent to my mom and dad.
Yeah.
I was like, "Is this not Sadie? This is crazy." But so it was a different. I would sit with her and squish into the same chair
Yeah.
as her, and just she was kind of heavy set, and just her arms were like dough. If you and I say that respectfully,
Yeah.
if they had a lot
sure.
of skin, so I would
Sure.
sit and kind of
That's
knead
beautiful.
her arms as we were watching TV. And one day we were watching TV, and there was a television commercial, if you recall, There was a perfume called Chloe, and it was early 80s, and it was a beautiful blonde woman. Now, my grandmother's 70-something, and my grandmother said to me, I wish I was beautiful like that. And I looked at her and I said, you are beautiful like that. And like, that was, so women, as much as men were in my life, the women in my life shaped me and really informed me and raised me, like the community of women. So I'm very connected to women on all levels of my life, which is funny because I'm also gay and married to Brian.
Well,
but
that's we all connect. I think we connect
life
with who
works
we
out.
do. Your father was absent then during
My
the day.
father was absent.
Did he ever take you to work with him?
Well, the first memory I have of my dad taking me to the Palm was in because he was working so much, the relationship wasn't so organic. There was a bit of, and I think Italian mothers and their sons, there's something in my sister and my father.
I know I was married to the son of an Italian mother.
So, you understand?
I used to say, when I used to walk into the house and Richard and I would go to visit her, there was what I used to call the gaze. It sort of stopped, like I was sort of put on the side. It would start at the top and just sort of go down and end with, you look a bit thin, is Ruthie giving you enough to eat? Or she was always, that was her.
Right.
And that's why we loved going home.
Right.
That's why you kind of went home.
That's so
funny. When he had his first granddaughter, aged, I guess she must have been in her 90. And when we said that Richard's son had a baby girl, this is my children, girl, she said, "Oh, at last now Richard will have someone to look after him." It was like,
Ruthie,
that's what it was. But you know what? You know what? I say the prisons are not full of people who've been loved too much.
Yeah, that is so
true.
So
that love, is sort of carried on.
It's very interesting.
It was really, really
yes, there
nice.
were many sort of.
So your father, though, we're talking about
my
your dad. He was at work.
My dad was working. I think the connection was when I got old and in my teens, I started to work in the summers for the Palm. I started to do. Not only was it in my blood, you could see that this is not for everybody, and it began a relationship for he and I, and then.
Well, go back to that. I mean, you realized that this was not what you wanted to do in life.
I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah, but it didn't.
But I knew during the summers I was going to work at the Palm because it was a summer job.
As what?
I worked out in East Hampton. I worked in the kitchen as an expediter. I was at the front, seating people, answering phones, taking... It was all old school at the time,
sure.
you know what I mean? There was no POS systems and things like that.
Nice.
And it was really... But what I did well was I connected with not only the guests, but the people I worked with. Yeah. And there was no entitlement. There was nothing. I was in it from the beginning to the end. And I think over time, because then when I became a young adult man looking for a career, I had my Hollywood years. I call them my Norma Jean years, where I went to Hollywood. I worked at night at the West Hollywood Palm, ringing checks with the maitre d' of all times, Gigi Del Maestro, who was a waiter at the Palm too. And as they expanded the Palm, they always expanded from within. They would, if you were working, it's the best way culturally to keep the integrity. Yeah. So Gigi became like a second dad to me. So at night, I'd be like answering phones, and during the day, I was trying to be an actor. I worked on a production. I did all that kind of stuff. It's where I met a lot of people that we, that we know together. And then when I came back to New York, I also came out in life, and I started to work. I was 27 at that point, though I had worked straight through the Palm. Right. And that was building a relationship with my dad that we didn't have from the early years. And then when I came out, I said to him, because it was such a heterosexual Palm, steakhouse,
very kind of
macho, right?
Yeah. There were probably no waitresses, were there? Or was everybody
much later in life.
Yeah, a lot
and
of
then
men
was the integration of, and then female managers and the whole thing. And I said, "Is this going to be an issue for you?" And he said, "No, you are a good man, and that's good. And that the restaurant, which I so resented as a boy, became the bridge that
Yeah.
gave me my relationship with my dad.
Yeah. Did you study in California?
I did. I wanted to go to I grew up watching television and
Yeah.
seeing these shows in California,
Yeah.
like Three's Company, Charlie's
yeah,
Angels,
sure.
all these. I thought California was like
Yeah.
just freedom. So when it was time to go, and I had a sort of vibe, just an energy. I was kind
I
of
can
laid
imagine.
back, and I just
Gorgeous.
thought,
As you are now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but
Yes, you are.
I said I want to go to LA for school. And I can remember two things happened in 1984. My dad said and which was very meaningful. He said, you don't have to go that far. We're not just going to pop up and and I said, that's not why I'm going. I'm going because I have this love of California. My mother said, your dad's going to take you. And I looked at her because their wedding anniversary was happening. She couldn't come. And I was like, are you crazy? We were in the kitchen. He was not, are you
this
crazy?
intimacy, was it the intimacy?
I go, what? And we landed, the radio was on and said, it's 97 degrees in Southern California. And I looked out the window and I was like, yes.
Yeah.
But he took me, and for 3 days, he did everything a dad you'd want. Get you set up in, get your bedding, set you up for food. And it was those 3 days that completely shape-shifted our relationship too. And he left and he wrote a note that said, there's always a ticket when you want to come home. I love you. And I'd never seen or heard him say that. And I kept it for a million years, and then I gave it back to him as a gift.
That's a beautiful story.
So
That's a great story.
To me, it's all about family, and it's all about.
But did you create yourself a bit of family, and even in that situation in LA? Did you?
Yeah.
Did you have your own apartment? Did you live in campus? Did you? Too many questions. Eat out, cook at home.
No, in the school years, I did do what you're saying, but in the school years it was pretty traditional. I had a family of the kids I was around, and we did all LA stuff. What I did was I graduated in 88. In 89, I moved back to New York and I became an NBC page. And I loved that job.
What was that like in 30 Rock?
In 30 Rock.
Kevin, what's his name? Kenneth.
Yes,
We
I was
love
not as
Kenneth.
queenie as him. Okay, I was not as queenie, but
I came to mind because I saw Tina Fey the other day. We were just talking
She's
about
amazing.
Kenneth. Yeah, so sorry.
All due respect,
tell
that
me
was
about,
not. I mean,
no,
you
okay,
did a
weren't
great
Kenneth.
job.
Kenneth was a really good worker. I mean, I would aspire to be as efficient as Kenneth.
Yes. No. Well, I was giving tours. I would give 4 tours. I loved. I actually stole my uniform from. You were supposed to return it, so I have even the button. And that year, SNL was celebrating its 15th year anniversary. So Saturdays were get to work, give 4 tours, hang out, work, do the show. And I, myself, and this girl, Stephanie, we had hair that was bigger than you can imagine. It was 1989. Big hair was in.
Some of these pictures.
It was crazy. And I would work the door, studio 8H. Again, you could get up, and I would have the list, and that was like the VIP, and I'd be like, sorry. You're not coming in. Your name, like people like
so cute.
So, but I also had the Today Show assignment, and to me, and I talk about that because I learned a lesson there that I think we're taught in our business. So that summer, no one wanted this assignment. It started at 5 in the morning. The Today Show went live at 7 a.m. Jane Pauley and Brian Gumbel were the hosts at the time. It was the last year
Brian
they were
Gumbel.
doing that. It was sort of like the trauma summer when they were kind of looking to get Jane out. John Palmer was reading the news, and they wanted him out. Deborah Norville came. It was quite. But every morning I went to work and I said, "Good morning, Miss Pauley. Good morning, Mr. Gumbel." I never called them Jane and Brian.
Yeah.
And my job was to make sure, Ruthie, you got to the green room in time, that the bagels were set up, that I got you to makeup in time, that I got you thing. We had people like Betty Davis.
Yeah.
So Betty Davis came one morning. She was all like smoking her cigs. I had to get her ashtray, and Catherine was her assistant at the time. It was Betty Davis, and she's in one of the private dressing rooms. And Catherine, I'm like, Betty Davis, she's iconic. I love her. And Catherine goes, you should go in and tell her. And I walk into this room, I knock, and she is leaned back on a chair, and she has a dress on. She has one leg down and one leg up on the wall, so her legs are quite spread. Couldn't see anything, but I was like, okay, oh my God. And that was the morning, and she was on Letterman that afternoon, so Catherine said, do you think you could help us? So I did, and she goes, Betty Davis says, can you walk me to my car because I'm being honored at Lincoln Center. She slips her hand through my arm. We get into this crowded elevator, and she's talking, and I put her in, and at one point, I'm standing between her and Audrey Hepburn, who's on Live at 5.
What?
And me. It was like those two talking and like my face. And I'm like, I don't know how.
That must have been their best day to have you in the middle, though. I bet they.
That's the throuple.
I think they. You said it was. Yeah.
It was the lesson. So Jane Pauley says to me, it's the end of August. I go every morning at 9:30. I go back to the Page office, and I am filled with energy and stories. So now the assignment comes back up because they were 3-month assignments. Everybody wants this assignment. It went from no one wanting it
of course.
to everyone wanting it. And the last day, it's like 6:50. Jane's going through her notes for the beginning, top of the show. She's putting on her lipstick. Never forget. And she says, Bruce, I hear today is your last day on the assignment. And I said, yes. And she goes, if you'd like, I would be happy to write you a letter of recommendation. And I said, oh, but all I did was make sure people got to makeup and hair. And she goes, it's not what you did, it's how you did it.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me.
Yeah, of course it did.
And I think it's when you're raised in hospitality and in service to people, you just do.
I really think that working in a restaurant teaches you so much, because of that experience of you have to be kind to people you might not want to be kind to. You have to read whether a table wants you to hover or they want you to go away. You have to find out if they're having a hard time, how you can make, people come to me and say, oh, there's a difficult table on table 4. I go, great, let me go and find them, because one of the challenges is there's no such thing as a difficult table. There are people who might have got lost getting here. They might have. I would say every table has a story. Their mother might be sick. They might have been fired that day. They might be celebrating. And I think what you're talking about from your experience at NBC, or whether it was at the Palm, or your mother or your grandma, it's all to do with actually bottom line liking people.
Yeah, my dad always would say, he'd be like, why are you working in the restaurant business if you don't like people? And when you come across that, he'd say, like, go be a librarian, sit in a library and be quiet and just like make sure someone has their book. And I don't mean anything disrespectful about, I'm sure there are many nice librarians. I'm just saying it's a job that you don't have to have. But I believe that you have to really be interested in people. And to your point, one of the, there's nothing like a restaurant like here, the River Cafe, when it's on full throttle and you feel the energy of that room, and there's a million details. Like you said, you're looking, and if someone's not eating their food, you're looking, and you're going to that table to understand, is something wrong, is something you don't like, because you want to make them happy. And I often would say to the people I work with, who were equally as important to me,
working where, in the embassy or in the Palm?
At the Palm. Anyone like there's a differential. If you disrespected somebody that worked at the Palm and you were a guest, that was unacceptable to me. But they were, they could have bad days too. But I always would say to them, you can't bring that into the house.
I agree.
This is the lady that we take care of because she provides, and the work here allows you to send your children to school. The work here lets people celebrate life. So if you're going to bring that shit in here, you got to go. And people do. So I remember the first time I learned how to fire somebody, which was very difficult.
That's really hard. What did you do?
I'm not that kind of guy. And I was working with a great general manager named Tim King. We opened up the Palm West in New York City, which was a big deal for me. It was July 1999, 250-seat restaurant.
Yeah, it's 25 years.
Super hot,
Where was it?
50th between Broadway and 8th Avenue.
Okay.
And, that was not even fully developed, that piece of Manhattan. And massive heat wave. So Tim King, he comes in and he said, there was a guy just we gave a lot of chances to, and he was not living to what the ethics, the values that and delivering the service. So he goes, okay, Bruce, we're going to go meet with him and you're going to fire him. And I'm like, no, Tam, I can't do that. He goes, no, you're going to fire him. And the way is because you're not firing him. He fired himself. And the minute he flipped it,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you're right. I didn't do this. We gave him a number of conversations and we wanted him to be successful. He couldn't be. So in delivering that message, as disappointing and upsetting as it is, when I think you get fired, for the most part, in my experience, it's you've done it to yourself. So that made it easier.
We once had, I've only had to actually fire somebody once, and in 38 years, and we had a chef who was really good. He was the one I always wanted to work with. He was just great, but one night he kind of flipped, and he did things that were really unacceptable in a restaurant, and so I had to call him in the next day, and I said, I'll call him Chris, right? Because we need to talk about this. What happened?
Yeah.
What happened last night? And he said, yeah, I don't know. We talked about it, and then I said, Chris, what would you do if you were me? And he said, I'd fire me. And I went, okay, you're fired. If he had said, I'd give you another chance, I would have said, I'll give you another chance. But he said, I'd fire me.
And pay me more.
And it was like, it was just so, but it is, it's really hard. So back to your trajectory, you went to UCLA, you came back, you worked at NBC, and then did you then go into the prom then?
So I said I needed one more chapter in California.
Okay.
And I thought it was going to be my last chapter.
Yeah.
And my mother looked at me and I was like, I'm 1990, I'm moving back to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. And it was one of those moments where you're standing at the door January and I leave, no place I'm sleeping on a buddy's couch.
Yeah.
And in those 3.5, 4 years, I met a lot of people in Hollywood, like Barry Diller and Sandy Gallen and like this whole great group, on top of working in the restaurant, which was fantastic. So I met like fancy people.
Right. Were you still pursuing your acting career?
I was a production assistant,
Good.
and I was I got only commercials that I could be in a bathing suit, not say a word, and show my body. That's what they wanted from me.
Okay.
I really could. Sandy would say, you were the worst actor I've ever heard. He'd help me do lines, and I'd be like, okay. And then he'd be like, if you knew Sandy, he was always like, real New York accent. He's like, you are a horrible actor. And I'd be like, thank you. Like, I'm going on this audition tomorrow. But it was what it allowed me was to create a group of friends that were gay and begin a community that I could get to know myself, which I couldn't do in New York because that was, bloodline. And then I knew it was time to go home. All of a sudden, I was like, because LA at the time, especially for me, didn't ask a lot of me. So I did everything. But you could literally be like, what'd you do today? Oh my God, I got my dry cleaning.
Yeah.
You had a big
must
day.
be tired.
Whoa, you must be exhausted. That was about it. So off I went. Then pom. I did, worked. And then I fell in love. And I fell in love with Brian. And I had decided right before that I was going to become a dad, and I was going to become a single father through surrogacy and IVF. And
How old were you?
I was 39, 40. And I said to my parents, I was like, I'm going to do this. And they were like, wow, it's not easy. And I said, yes. And though I had known Brian, life brought us together. That really brought us together in a series of circumstance, which created were like, and I moved back to LA.
And that was a domestic life, was it? Did you then create a family home and cooking?
When I cook things very simple.
Like what?
Steak.
Tell me about what you like to cook.
My stuff is, I can cook a great steak, charred, seared, medium rare, sautéed spinach. I like very clean, just these are like lyonnaise potatoes or, sautéed potatoes and onions and a nice salad. 2.5 bottles of wine.
Sounds good to me. That is good. It is really good.
It's really good.
It is really good.
So like that. So that was the last 20 years of, And in the beginning, I was doing a lot of traveling because of the restaurant. My job had become more of an executive position. And then what we realized, too, was people forgot the Palm was a family-owned business. Because and I got a little media training and would go on TV shows and I would cook dishes.
Yeah.
Very, classic Palm
too.
dishes.
Yeah.
And I would always say when it was presented to me as a possibility to do, I said, that's fine, but I can never be presented as a chef. I can be presented as a Palm
cook.
expert.
Yeah.
Because I can cook you the shrimp bruno, or I
Right.
can cook you the steak, or the what. But I'm not a chef. That would be disrespectful. I just know how to cook our food. So I did that for a while, and then 20 years later, the Palm is no longer in our family.
Yeah.
In 2020, unrelated to COVID, but really due to family strife, where they always say generational family businesses do eventually.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. And when I look back, my 2020 of it is the Palm at 10 restaurants, which was now in 10 cities, still retained its magic somehow. Not somehow, because culturally at the time, we were still, everyone was being grown within. Once you got past that and you started to hire from outside, you couldn't teach that culture.
Yeah.
And then it just became too big and too manageable. And though it was successful for many, many years, and like us all, good times, recessions, bad times, if I could tell the younger version of me to tell the younger version of my dad, I would have said, been more of like a McNally, have a bunch of restaurants in one city, and you can really sort of enjoy the different flavors of that. I think the man I am is all due to the room I stood in for so many years. When you're standing on your feet and you're looking at people and you're connecting and you're responsible for them, like you said earlier, closing a business deal so you know when to go near a table and not, to make sure the quality of the food is great, but it's really about the experience, or you are responsible for them celebrating an engagement or a christening or a marriage. Like these are things.
Yeah.
And then just connecting with people and making people feel. Tim taught me once, another lesson he taught me was at the podium when people would come. So someone comes in that I don't know, and then Ruthie, you come in. So you're right behind them. So I'm talking with them, but then I see you and I light up. And he took me aside and he said, just so you know what you're doing, but you can't see the face of the person that's right in front of you.
Right.
They see that and
They see
they kind of go their
No, I
energy,
think that's
because I go, wow, you're right. Everyone needs to get that.
I always try, when I go to a table of somebody I know, I sort of say hello to the other people first.
Yes,
To do that,
it's true. It's
just like,
important.
because otherwise you're sort of saying hello, the big embrace to the person you know, and then the other people are like,
Right.
Right,
like, oh,
and
look
so
at
it's
that.
like, I'm not interested in you. I'm
Right.
interested in who are your friends,
Yeah.
where have you come from.
We always say
Is this your first time?
the most important guest was the first time. The face you didn't know in the room was really the most important guest for you to connect with.
I often say that I have the best job in the world. I love my job. I love coming in here, and it's sort of become, it's a place of, energy and decisions. And food is, I think it's, as we say, it's about sharing. It's about communicating, about connections that you and I really bonded in the kitchen, trying to open those jars. Do you remember we had to bang them on the floor?
Right.
Jars of tomatoes. And so food is all that. It's a connection, it's sharing, it's love, it's stressful sometimes, it's all that, but it is also comfort.
Yeah.
And so for my, as you say, we're going to do this again. We're going to do this, carry on. But if food is all that, but it also is something that you very often reach for because you need food to give you maybe a sense of comfort. Would it be your mom's lasagna? Is there food that you have that would be a source of comfort for you?
Sure, yes. I mean, I think it has changed. I think, yes, there was one. My mother's lasagna is always a source of comfort, but it's now a rarity because, she doesn't do it as much. I think I like to take a chicken and slice it up and saute it with brown rice, with broccoli, with vegetable, with a little bit of a jalapeno pepper, so it gives it a little bit of a kick. And it's like, and I always need to put it in a bowl. I would
Eating in a
love
bowl
food
is
in a bowl.
comforting, isn't it?
And I love to do pasta in a sort of restaurant metal bowl where you just really kind of like twirl it around. And like that to me gives me a lot of comfort and joy.
Well, you give me comfort. And thank you so much for coming today.
Thank
It's
you
so
for
good.
having me.
We'll do more. Let's go eat.
So, okay.
Thank you.
Ruthie's Table 4 was produced by Alex Bell, Robbie Hamilton, and Zad Rogers, with Andrew Sang and Bella Cellini. This has been an Atomized production for iHeart Media.